Chen Jingrang and I were husband and wife for decades. In all those years, he never once called me by my name, only ever Mrs. Chen Jiang. Under the glass on his desk, he always kept a faded photograph, a snapshot of his one true love on the day she enrolled at Lianda University. Even on the day I closed my eyes for the last time, he still resented me for tearing apart his destined marriage. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day Lianda University confirmed its enrollment list. I'm calling off the wedding. I tore up the marriage contract. I'm going to study. In this life, I refuse to be the nameless Mrs. Chen Jiang. I will be Jiang Yan again. On the final day of registration at the Associated University, I rushed breathlessly into the admissions office. Professor, I'm Jiang Yan, a new student in the School of Engineering. I'm here to enroll. Sweat mingled with tears as they streamed down. No one knows the price I paid to stand here. The admissions teacher adjusted his glasses in surprise. But your fiancé was here last week, with your signed marriage certificate and withdrawal application. The memory of that day still stabs at my heart. When Chen Jingrang presented the marriage certificate, my hands trembled with joy. At 16, my parents forced me into his chamber as a serving maid. Though reluctant at first, he taught me to read and write. After discovering my knack for accounting, he defied his entire family and put me in charge of the business. Even when we were fleeing and an air raid hit, when we fell into the river, he never let go of my hand. In these turbulent times, nothing is certain. I only pray our names can be written together. That line on the marriage certificate brought tears to my eyes, and I signed my name without a second thought. Little did I know, a withdrawal form was hidden underneath. Professor, I've made up my mind. I've dried my tears. I will be Jiang Yan, a student of the National Southwestern Associated University, not the nameless Mrs. Chen. In my past life, that's how I muddled my way into becoming Mrs. Chen, my own name, overshadowed by his surname. To others, he always referred to me distantly as Chen Jiangshi. Gradually, I even forgot my own name. Through move after move, I grew accustomed to introducing myself to everyone as Mrs. Chen. I even felt guilty about it. After all, he was just trying to spare my feelings. I kept moving, relentlessly avoiding his one true love, Tong Jingwan. This was his proof of loving me. I naively believed that his choice between me and Tong Jingwan was made out of love for me. But there were still occasional moments of doubt. On the eve of every move, he would sit up all night, writing farewell letters to Tong Jingwan. Each day, while dusting, I would see the photograph of Tong Jingwan pressed beneath the glass on his desk. As the years pass, only her face remains undimmed by time. A dull, aching pain would then seep slowly into my heart. If you can't forget Tong Jingwan, then why did you marry me? But when I poured out my grievances to him, he would only silently turn off the lamp. Let's have a child, maybe things will get better then. Soon after, I had a son. When he was a babbling toddler, he depended on me and needed me. Once he learned to read and write, he looked down on me for never having gone to university, for any school matters. He always contacted Chen Jingrang instead. It wasn't until I fell ill and was admitted to the clinic that my son finally agreed to come see me. He even brought along Tong Jingwan, the university mentor I had spent a lifetime avoiding. Since you and Dad don't have any feelings left anyway, why not just let him be with Professor Tong? Father and son were singing from the same hymn sheet. Seeing that I was on death's door, Tong Jingwan simply laid all her cards on the table. My ranking on the joint university entrance exam was right behind yours. Jingrang only married you to help me get into the joint university. Her expression was one of unmistakable grievance. If I could do it over, I'd rather have given up that admission spot than lose Jingrang. My heart dropped like a stone. All the questions I could never answer before suddenly made sense. Chen Jingrang only married me to fulfill his first love, Tong Jingwan's dream of attending the United University. The husband I had spent decades with had never loved me at all. I've already sacrificed decades to make it up to you. Can't I finally live for myself after you're gone? Even the son I raised with my own hands is now blaming me. You only lost a place at the university, but Professor Tong has lost a lifetime's worth of potential. They all think I got the better end of the deal, but what about my life? Who will give me back the years I've lost? I died with a heart full of resentment. When I opened my eyes, I had somehow returned to the age of 18, back to a time before I had married Chen Jingrang. The reporting date is in 1 month. Jiang Yan, don't forget this time. I won't. I tucked the hard-won acceptance letter into my coat. A month was more than enough time for me to pack my things and move out of the Chen residence. But before I could even start packing, my clothes were already thrown out of the room and haphazardly piled in the hallway. Servants bustled in and out, trampling over my small, faded undergarments that I had so carefully laundered. Tong Jingwan wore an expression of utter entitlement. What kind of worthless junk deserves to occupy such a fine room? Chen Jingrang tried to intervene. The mansion has plenty of rooms. Why must you insist on taking this one from her? The word steal seemed to hit Tong Jingwan right where it hurt. Her voice trembled with disbelief and tears. Am I the one trying to steal her away? It's her. She's the one trying to take you from me. She's going to marry you in a month. There will be no place for me in this Chen manor anymore. Brother Jingrang, can't Jingwan even live a little closer to you now? That's exactly how she was in my past life, never once mentioning her scheme to steal my university admission spot. Instead, she accused me of stealing her Chen Jingrang from her. It was Chen Jing's own guilty conscience that drove him to propose to me, from start to finish. I was the one kept completely in the dark. Not a single person asked if I was willing to make this trade, yet they act as if I'm the one who tore apart their star-crossed romance. I now watched this farce with cold detachment, a mocking gaze fixed on Chen Jingrang. And what is Mr. Chen's opinion on the matter? Chen Jingrang seemed taken aback. He hadn't expected me, always so understanding and accommodating, to throw the question back at him this time. How about we clear out my room for Miss Tong to use? Will that suffice? Tong Jingwan realized Chen Jingrang was angry and finally reined in her temper. Alright, I won't move. How about I take you to Nanping Grand Theater to see a show instead? The matter was simply left unresolved. Yet, most of Tong Jingwan's belongings had already been moved in. They just assumed I had to swallow this bitter pill in silence and move to another room. I sorted out the textbooks and notes I would need for my studies, along with the clothes that hadn't been trampled. My savings were nearly gone, and there would be plenty of expenses once the new term started. These days, every little bit of saving helps. Chen Jingrang seemed quite pleased with my concession. Don't worry. Jingwan is only staying for a month. She'll move out once her school term starts. It won't affect our wedding date. I didn't tell them that I've already confirmed my enrollment at the United University. In this lifetime, it's unlikely to be Tong Jingwan's turn, someone ranked below me, to become a United University student. But I'm not sure how far Chen Jingrang would go for Tong Jingwan. It's best not to give anything away right now. Miss Tong has feelings for you. She would be heartbroken to see us marry. Perhaps we should wait until Miss Tong leaves for school before discussing our wedding date. Chen Jingrang hadn't expected this. I'm being so considerate for Tong Jingwan's sake. I know it's been hard on you. The truth is, Jingwan was simply spoiled by her family from a young age. She doesn't mean any harm towards you. Her family is gone now. Once I see her settled into school, I can rest easy. I'll take you away from here. She won't disturb your life anymore. In my past life, I was genuinely moved by those words of his. He was willing to explain things to me. His care for Tong Jingwan was merely an obligation he felt compelled to fulfill. He saw the difficulty and forbearance I was enduring. He was even willing to move for me and cut off all contact with Tong Jingwan. What more could I possibly ask for? But I never stopped to think deeply about why. Between Tong Jingwan and me, it was always me who had to yield. Compromise, and step aside. There were only 7 days left until the start of the semester. I began moving my luggage to the United Nations University dormitory, bit by bit, ahead of time. I hadn't expected to run into Chen Jingrang on the way. Seeing the luggage in my hands, he frowned deeply. The wedding is upon us. Where are you off to? I told the lie without batting an eye. I ran into some fellow villagers who've fallen on hard times. Since I won't be needing these beddings and clothes anymore, I'm giving them away. Young Master Chen Jing has a bit of a temper, and my fellow villagers are all rather simple folk. Once I realized he didn't want to engage, I knew better than to press the matter. Yet today, he surprisingly offered to give me a ride. It's not like I have anything else going on today anyway. After Chen Jingrang bought the car, I actually rode in it only a handful of times. He assumed I rarely went out. While Tong Jingwan loved a lively scene, he would drive her to the Nanping Grand Theater to watch movies and to the dance studio to tango. Even now, as I opened the car door, I even found a tube of Max Factor lipstick that Tong Jingwan had left behind. Chen Jingrang discreetly pocketed the lipstick. You've been cooped up at home since you arrived in Kunming. Let me drive you around to see the sights. That won't be necessary. Just take me to Wenlin Street. He took the long way around. Pulling the car to a stop in front of a dried fruit shop, he got out to buy me some preserved fruit. In a daze, I was transported back to that year when I was 16, bound by his parents' decree. He had no choice but to accept my company by his side. Just as my stomach let out a loud, hungry growl, he pulled a bar of imported chocolate from his pocket. I took a bite and immediately frowned. It's so bitter. Do foreigners actually enjoy this stuff? he asked me with a light chuckle. So, what do you like to eat? I said I liked the preserved fruits from Jiaruzhai. The next day, the entire Chen household knew that young Master Chen had driven to Jiaruzhai first thing in the morning. In my name, he bought out the entire shop stock of preserved fruits and shared them with everyone. Go on, have a taste. Does it remind you of Jiaruzhai? The powdered sugar melted on my tongue, yet tears began to fall uncontrollably. It was bitter, after decades of hardship and sorrow. I can no longer taste even a hint of sweetness. Chen Jingrang lowered his head, intending to wipe away my tears. The next moment, Tong Jingwan's voice called out from a distance, Jingrang Gij. Chen Jingrang's outstretched hand froze in midair. I turned away, wiping the tears away with the back of my hand. Tong Jingwan acted as if she hadn't seen what had just happened between us. Frowning, she complained that her heel had gotten stuck in a gap in the cobblestone path. It snapped off right then and there, leaving her worried about how she would get back. She slid into the car with effortless ease. Chen Jingrang, however, remained motionless, and her smile finally began to falter. Aren't we leaving? Jingrang, my foot really hurts. I instinctively gathered my things from the back seat, but Chen Jingrang stopped me with a firm hand. He began, addressing Tong Jingwan. She was here first. I need to see her to Wenlin Street. Tong Jingwan lowered her gaze and smiled wryly. Brother Jingrang, will you really lack for chances to escort Mrs. Chen later? As for Jingwan, she'll truly be all alone from now on. A single sentence was enough to make Chen Jingrang's face soften with pity. When Chen Jingrang saw her swollen ankle, he cast all other concerns aside. I'm sorry, I shook my head. Miss Tong's leg injury is more important. You should go. The luggage on my shoulder was indeed heavy. But what was that compared to the weight of decades of married life? The final day had arrived at last. All my luggage left at the Chen residence had been cleared out. All that remained were the handwritten notes Chen Jingrang had compiled for me. It was he who encouraged me to apply for the United University in the first place. I was just an accountant's daughter. I never attended a girls' school, nor did I receive a proper education in reading and writing. I simply had a knack for arithmetic and had studied a bit under Chen Jingrang's guidance, but under the kerosene lamp, the encouraging look in Chen Jingrang's eyes shone like a spark. How will you know it's impossible if you don't even try? But when I actually got into the National Southwestern Associated University, he wanted me to give up everything I'd worked so hard for, to make way for his one true love. Now, as I'm about to start a new chapter in my life, I don't plan on taking any of this with me. Tong Jingwan, however, believed I had deliberately laid these things out to flaunt them in front of her. Her gaze towards me was filled with pure hatred. You've merely had a stroke of luck, yet you're about to make me lose Brother Jingrang forever. What gives you the right to marry him? What about you is worthy of Brother Jingrang? She blocked my path, her eyes growing increasingly deranged. Why don't you just die? If only you were dead, Brother Jingrang wouldn't have to force himself to marry a woman he doesn't love. She suddenly shoved me backward. Thankfully, I clung to the railing for dear life and managed not to fall. Instead, she lost her balance and slammed into the railing, scraping the skin on her forehead. Chen Jingrang arrived just in time to see it happen. His first instinct was to hold Tong Jingwan and confront me. I already agreed to marry you. What is the meaning of this? The pain in my arm was so intense it drained the color from my face. It must have been dislocated. With tears welling in her eyes, Tong Jingwan began to twist the truth. She said she was Mrs. Chen, the future mistress of this mansion, and told me to get out. She also said you wouldn't be allowed to see me anymore. I have to register at the school tomorrow, so I have no mind to argue with her right now. Bearing the pain, I got up, intending to find a clinic on the street to treat my injured hand, but Chen Jingrang stopped me. I want you to apologize to Jingwan. Yet the look Chen Jingrang gave me was full of disappointment. You know perfectly well that Jingwan is struggling to accept our marriage right now. You deliberately flaunted it in front of her. If you don't apologize to her today, I will reconsider our engagement. Do you think this marriage is some kind of favor bestowed upon me? I humbled myself to please his cherished one, and in return, he graciously offered me the chance to marry him. Otherwise, he reserves the right to withdraw it at any moment. Mr. Chen, you are far too arrogant. You never once thought to ask if I was willing to trade my future for this marriage, if I was willing to accept that my husband's heart would always belong to another, if I was willing to swallow this bitter pill. Yes, I did have feelings for you. But does that mean I deserve to be humiliated like this? Chen Jingrang's face flushed, then paled. He locked the door. Since you refuse to apologize, you can stay here and think about what you've done. I'll let you out when you're ready to say you're sorry. After that, no matter how hard I knocked, no one answered. As dawn broke, I had no choice but to grit my teeth and force my dislocated joint back into place myself. I tore the cotton bedsheet into strips, tied them to the fourth-floor window, and lowered them down. Today was the registration day for the start of the United University's term. I couldn't afford to miss this hard-won chance to enroll. Not again. I won't let Qin Jingrang ruin my life again. I forced down my fear and kept climbing. The sheet tore when I reached the second floor, but luckily the ground below was soft, well-tended soil. I tumbled once and came away mostly unharmed. I took one last look at the Chen mansion. This place where I wasted my entire life. Goodbye to the nightmarish life of Qin Jiangshi. From now on, I am just Jiang Yan. I successfully enrolled. I became a new student in the Department of Aerodynamics at the College of Engineering, National Southwestern Associated University. Qin Jingrang came to see me a few times, but each time the school guards turned him away. He had no choice but to send me a message through someone else. It started with accusations, demanding to know why I had just walked out like that. They even noticed I'd cleared out all my belongings, asking if I had planned to leave all along and was just toying with them. After more than a month passed with no reply from me, their tone softened as they tried to explain. He genuinely wanted to marry me. I've now enrolled at the National Southwestern Associated University, and Tong Jingwan is planning to retake the entrance exams next year. The school dormitory is quite inconvenient in many ways. It would be better to move back to the Chen residence. I haven't replied to a single letter, using them all as scrap paper instead. The coursework at the university is extremely demanding, especially in my department, aeronautical engineering. The program admits only a few dozen students, and the admission criteria are extremely rigorous. Not long after the semester began, some students dropped out, unable to cope with the pressure. Experimental design, drafting, and testing are all indispensable components. Late submission of study reports will result in point deductions. The slide rule does not indicate the decimal point, so you must determine its position after performing the calculation. If you misplace the decimal point by one digit, the value is multiplied by 1/10. If you're off by 2 digits, it's multiplied by 1/100th. The department head expanded the curriculum based on the mechanics course. Incorporate courses in mechanics and manufacturing. I even had to do an internship at the West Suburb Aircraft Repair Factory. Standing on that vast, desolate, and still under construction airfield, my state of mind was completely different from my past life. I was no longer confined to that small Chen mansion, nor did I languish over Qin Jingrang's hot and cold behavior anymore. People no longer addressed me as Mrs. Qin Jiang or Mrs. Chen. Instead, it was Miss Jiang, classmate Jiang Yan, or Engineer Jiang, until a sudden gale arose, and a plane made an emergency landing in the azure sky, skidding for hundreds of meters. The cockpit opened, and the roar fell silent. From the steam emerged a military green flight jacket, one corner of it singed. The young pilot, barely in his 20s, vaulted onto the fuselage and leapt down. A pair of affectionate eyes brimmed with laughter. "You are a student from the National Southwestern Associated University." I saw the name embroidered on his lapel, Fubei Gue. We had actually met long before. That year, Qin Jingrang and I were fleeing by boat when enemy planes swooped low, strafing the area. Everyone had taken shelter in the cabin, praying to the gods. Only a little girl remained on the bow. Her mother had just been struck and killed by a stray bullet. Seeing the next wave of gunfire was imminent, I rushed forward, ignoring Qin Jingrang's pleas to stop, the moment he pulled her into his arms. You could even hear the roar of enemy planes overhead. Just as I thought I was done for, a plane launched a surprise attack from the enemy's flank and rear, ultimately causing the strafing fire to veer off course. In the end, the hull was hit and took on water, forcing us to abandon ship. Fortunately, we had already passed through the most treacherous rapids. Qin Jingrang rescued both me and the little girl, bringing us safely ashore. It was in that very moment the idea of marrying him first took root in my mind. Looking back now, I realize it was just the suspension bridge effect, a fleeting feeling born from a near-death experience. I finally remembered the tail number of the plane that rammed the enemy in a moment of desperation. It was this one right in front of me, 617, with its fuel exhausted and its fuselage riddled with bullet holes and scars. The repair and maintenance of this aircraft were assigned to me. His fellow pilots from the same training cohort advised him to file a report with the squadron leader. "We need an older, more experienced engineer. After all, they're using that plane to cheat death." A young female college student. "Is she really up to the task?" I've heard doubts like that countless times, and that was putting it mildly. In my past life, I never went to college. Even the son I raised with my own hands wouldn't trust me. Mom, stop messing around, you never even went to college, how could you possibly fix a radio? Even after the radio was fixed, he and Chen Jingrang also suspected that I did it just to save face. I paid someone to fix it, but then pretended it was my own doing. I understand you want to save face, but you can't lie in front of the child. The long passage of time seems to have made Chen Jingrang forget. I was once someone who demonstrated a talent for mathematics and earned a place at the National Southwestern Associated University entirely on my own merit, yet, we had only met once. Fu Beigui, with whom I had barely even spoken, remarked, Miss Jiang is an outstanding student in the Department of Aerodynamics at the School of Engineering, National Southwestern Associated University. They got there through hard work, just like us, the people who've reached the very top of their field. Fu Beigui tossed a paid-for bottle of soda right into the lap of the person who was speaking. On your first test flight, you nearly crashed into someone's roof. The squadron leader didn't even think about replacing you. I couldn't help but let out a laugh. The other pilots all noticed me, standing at the doorway, who knows for how long. For a moment, they stood there in awkward hesitation, each waiting for the other to move first. Only Fu Beigui stood up, took out a handkerchief, and wiped down the nearby table and chair. Engineer Jiang, have a seat here. He showed me the utmost respect. Tong Jingwan walked in, took in the scene, and let out a scornful laugh. What kind of engineer? I doubt she even finished college. Tong Jingwan had failed the National University entrance exam several times. In the end, it was Chen Jingrang who pulled some strings to get her into a school. She's always been resentful. Convinced that my admission back then was just a stroke of pure luck. I hear the engineering school at the university is notoriously difficult, so a lot of people end up dropping out. Even if you had managed to get in back then by some fluke, you probably wouldn't have been able to graduate. These days, he's probably just hanging around with that bunch of pilots to make ends meet. Those pilots immediately stood up, ready to back me up. I tugged on Fu Beigui's sleeve, not wanting to get into it with Tong Jingwan here. There's a whole pile of things waiting to be dealt with back at the repair shop. This place is a turn-off. Let's eat somewhere else. But just as we reached the door, Chen Jingrang forcibly stopped us. He grabbed my hand. Haven't you caused enough trouble? Come back with me. Chen Jingrang had seen me long before Tong Jingwan rushed in. It had only been 3 years, yet he could barely recognize me. I sat among those pilots, chatting and laughing with ease. There was no trace left of the timid, awkward girl who once trailed behind her as a second wife. He hadn't initially believed Tong Jingwan's claim that I had been expelled, but witnessing this scene, Chen Jingrang's conviction began to waver. If they hadn't corrupted you, why would you have run away from the Chen residence without a word? Why have you refused to send me any word at all these past 3 years? Send you word for what? So you could illegally detain me, force me to confess to a crime I didn't commit, and make me apologize to Tong Jingwan? Or are you here to persuade me to give up my university spot to Tong Jingwan, or to warn me not to harbor foolish hopes, that Miss Tong is the one you truly care for, to tell me to stop making unreasonable demands? Back then, my father, owing a debt of gratitude to the Chen family, made me promise to look after Chen Jingrang. After these years of exile in the south, and a lifetime of marriage and a past life, any debt of gratitude between us has long been settled. Fu Beigui noticed my displeasure. He strode forward and shielded me behind him. She doesn't want to go with you. Didn't you hear her, Mr. Chen? A group of pilots stood together, forming a tight protective circle around me. Engineer Jiang is one of our own from the West Suburb Repair Depot. If Mr. Chen wishes to pay a visit, he is kindly requested to send a telegram to the 14th Air Force. This was to prevent Chen Jingrang from coming back to pester us again. Fu Beigui walked me all the way to the dormitory building. I told him about all those old stories between me and Chen Jingrang. It's quite a fateful story, really. We were fleeing by boat back then. It was only because you shot down the enemy plane that we managed to escape. I never got the chance to thank you. Fu Beigui lowered his gaze, seemingly lost in memory. I spoke up to break the tension. You've saved so many people. You probably don't remember. Yet he lifted his head urgently to look at me. How could I forget? I remember. You were the young woman standing at the bow of the boat. The spring breeze tousled the stray hairs by my ear, and my heart thundered in my chest. Not everyone would step forward for a stranger. You are very brave, Miss Jiang. Back then, Chen Jingrang's take on this same situation was that I was meddling in other people's business. I put myself in danger for a stranger, and even got him involved, nearly drowning as he tried to save me. I've always felt deeply guilty about it. But the boat was already taking on water from multiple bullet holes at the time. The enemy aircraft have already spotted us. Whether I escape or not won't change the fact that the ship is going down. It's a truth I should have grasped long ago, yet it's haunted me for all these years. The repairs on 617 are proceeding smoothly. I sent word to Gue, asking him to come for a test flight when he's free. Hearing footsteps approach, I slid out from under the aircraft's fuselage. Out of habit, I raised my right hand, throwing my weight around. Captain Fu, help me roll up my sleeve. When the other person made no move, I looked up and realized it was Chen Jingrang. His outstretched hand hung in midair, his face ashen. Are the two of you that close now? What a strange thing to say. I'm not his wife anymore. Instead of caring about Tong Jingwan, he comes to me to vent his pointless jealousy. He even had the nerve to put on an air of magnanimity. You've gotten your wish and become a student at the Associated University now. I've also found another school for Jingwan and had her move out of the Chen residence. Are you satisfied now? Ready to come back and live here? So that's why there have been rumors lately about Miss Tong making a scene outside the Chen residence. Turns out the free apartment wasn't working out anymore. But what does that have to do with me, Mr. Chen? What makes you think I'd give up a perfectly good dorm room to move into some second-hand apartment in your Chen mansion? Chen Jingrang was stung to the quick and flew into a rage. Do you really think that Pilot is going to marry you? Chen Jingrang thought he had found my Achilles heel. He's just toying with you. If he were serious, why hasn't he married you yet? Hasn't he even moved you into the Air Force Village? A voice answered from behind, firm and resonant, because Ms. Jiang Yan is a hawk meant to soar the skies, not to be caged in a tiny Air Force village. The guy who usually couldn't care less about the holes in his flight jacket, this time, he even had a medal pinned to his chest. Gue handed me a report that had been drafted long ago. The beneficiary listed for the death benefit is Jiang Yan's name. If the day ever comes that I die for my country, she can use that money to do whatever she wants. I looked at the two men standing before me. Chen Jingrang addressed me with the distant, formal title of Chen Jiangshi. He believed I had gotten the better end of the deal by marrying him, and that I had been comfortably ensconced in domestic trivialities for decades. In his eyes, I was considered fortunate, even as I lay on my deathbed in my previous life. He was still demanding to know what more I could possibly be dissatisfied with. Yet Gue simply handed me a report, as if it were nothing, all to keep me from feeling any pressure. He went on to explain that his family and friends had all perished in the war, so he had no real ties or attachments to hold him back. With a favorable wind to lend its force, I send you soaring to the highest clouds. If that day ever truly comes, let me be the wind beneath Engineer Zhang's wings. I don't want him to be anyone's wind. The more I learn about him, the more my only wish is for his safe return, to see the day of victory, safe and sound. I don't recall what Gui's fate was. I only remember reading about it in the newspaper in my past life. Kunming suffered multiple bombings in the latter stages of the war. Many Air Force soldiers made the ultimate sacrifice with great valor. I don't know if Gui was among them. What if the 617 I repaired with my own hands was among those that fell from the sky? The mere thought of that possibility makes my heart ache with a dull, persistent throb. I took a sip of whiskey and pretended to be drunk as I joked with Gue. Find someone else to fix your 617. I don't dare touch it anymore. I can't bear to imagine how I would blame and torment myself if that day ever truly came. How could I possibly sift through the wreckage of a plane to identify and gather his remains? Gue didn't brush me off casually just because I had said it in a joking tone. I'm sorry, Jiang Yan, it was thoughtless of me. I almost blurted it out. Why don't you just not fly? Don't become a pilot, just stay here with me and live an ordinary life. But I couldn't bring myself to say it, just as he never asked me to give up my job at the repair shop to become his little wife in the Air Force Village. That way, he could see me the moment he returned. Nor could I ask him to abandon his ideals and turn his back on the lives of so many people. Besides, I am one of those under his protection. Just kidding, I'll wait for you to come back. I pulled him fiercely into my embrace, my tears soaking his shoulder. You must come back. The war situation was critical, and enemy planes bombing over Kunming had become a daily occurrence. The first siren usually meant enemy aircraft had been spotted. But I was busy helping my mentor bury the hard-won instruments underground. By the time I finally ran out, the third siren was already sounding, and the enemy planes had begun their bombing run. I didn't have time to make it up the hill. A sudden force yanked me into the nearest trench. Don't be afraid, it's me. It was Chen Jingrang. He shielded me in his arms, using his own body to block the falling debris. as the roar of the bombardment faded into the distance. The ground slowly settled back into stillness. "Thank you." I pulled myself free from his embrace and stood up. Looking up, I saw Tong Jingwan standing behind me, disheveled from the falling debris, her eyes blazing with fury. "Brother Jingrang, I am your wife. How can you stand up for her like this?" It was only then that I learned they were on the verge of getting engaged. Tong Jingwan would rather drop out of school than give up her position as Mrs. Chen of the Chen mansion. The two of them, who were once so compatible, began to quarrel frequently. Yan Yan was sent to my side by my parents long ago. During our flight south, she saved my life on multiple occasions. In a moment of crisis like that, did you expect me to just abandon her and let her die? What a familiar scene, only this time, the one being protected was me. Tong Jingwan was the one accused of making a scene. I truly used to believe the reason my marriage with Chen Jingrang was so miserable in our past life was that he never loved me. If only it had been Tong Jingwan by his side back then, perhaps they would have made a loving couple. Yet it turned out to be the same ending after all. Chen Jingrang even started trying to persuade me. That man Fu swore his undying love to you, but in a crisis like today's, he simply couldn't protect you. I looked up at the sky, where the smoke of gunpowder had cleared, finally restored to peace. If they hadn't been up there, engaging the enemy aircraft, would you and I still be standing here, safe and sound on this land? As I climbed out of the trench, a scene of utter desolation stretched before me. Shattered limbs lay jumbled with broken beams and roof tiles. The elation of survival was twisted with the searing pain of losing loved ones. Yet on the distant horizon, a rose-tinted dusk began to glow. Tong Jingwan couldn't take it any longer and immediately turned away to vomit. I didn't linger with them any further and went straight back to the West Suburb Repair Depot. Fu Beigue had promised me, if there was any news, he would have it sent to the West Suburb Aircraft Repair Depot. No news is good news. I don't remember how I got through that night. The slightest sound would startle me awake. I was afraid it might be one of the pilots I'd seen before. Bring me Fu Beigue's blood-stained flight jacket. It wasn't until the break of day that I could finally rest for a moment. Some time passed like this, and the frequency of the bombings gradually lessened. I received a letter from Fu Beigue. "Jiang Yan, the situation is improving, victory is within our grasp, and we are preparing to set sail for home next month." I never dared to make a promise before, for our very survival was uncertain, but now, my return is finally in sight. "Miss Jiang Yan, will you marry me?" I pulled out a piece of russet brocade from the bottom of the chest. This was left to me by my mother. She said that when I found the one, I should use this fabric to make a new cheongsam. I took the fabric to a tailor at a dressmaker's shop. The work would take 10 days. It would be ready just in time for me to wear it when Fu Beigue returned, so I could welcome him home. That was my answer to him. Just as we were finalizing the design, Tong Jingwan rushed forward without a word. She picked up the scissors and cut the fabric in two. "It's you. It must be you who seduced Jingrang, making his life a living hell. I will never divorce him. I will cling to the title of Mrs. Chen until the day I die." A sharp ringing filled my ears. I stood frozen in place, clutching the two torn pieces of brocade in my hand. The voice of a pilot came from outside the door. "Is Miss Jiang Yan here? We've come to deliver Captain Fu's personal effects." The two letters lay so close together. The letter before was a marriage certificate, and the very next one became a will, explained by comrades from Fu Beigue's aviation squadron. Victory was within grasp, but the enemy launched a desperate last-ditch counterattack. Captain Fu fought valiantly against the enemy. His aircraft sustained multiple hits and was severely damaged. In the end, he forced the enemy aircraft down with him into the river, leaving no trace behind. Is he afraid I'd blame myself? Is that why he didn't even leave me a single piece of wreckage? They had no answer. Leaving the condolence payment, they departed. Chen Jingrang brought Tong Jingwan over to apologize. "I'm sorry, Jiang Yan. Jingwan misunderstood the nature of our relationship today. Where did you purchase the fabric that was ruined? I will find you an exact replacement. I promise. Get out." I hurled everything within my reach. "Get out." I locked the door, slumped to the floor, and my tears fell one by one into the dust. Why? Just why? So close. I was so close. I would have been there to see him return. I fell seriously ill and requested leave from my advisor. I bought a ticket to the tributary where Fu Beigue fell. On the day of departure, Chen Jingrang bought the train ticket for the seat next to mine. He and Tong Jingwan had already divorced. All that happened in the past was my own foolishness, for I failed to see the one right before my eyes. What I felt for Jingwan was merely a brotherly affection. It is for you that I hold romantic feelings. The day you moved out of the Chen residence, I already knew, but I was never willing to face my own heart. Chen Jingrang offered the dried fruit to me. Jiang Yan, give me a chance to take care of you again, will you? I didn't answer. I just tapped on the car window. Tong Jingwan outside noticed and hurried over. I got up and went to the dining car, wanting no further entanglement with them. Nor did I need that bag of cheap dried fruit anymore, Mr. Chen. The person you were meant to care for was never me in the past, and it shouldn't be me in the future either. I only realized it after the train pulled into the station. The place where Fu Beigui fell to his death was upstream from the tributary where we first met. Now the fog has lifted, and the daylight shines through once more. I ran into the little girl I saved from the bow of the boat all those years ago. She used to only come up to my knee, but after a few years apart, she shot up almost to my chest. After you all left, a few pilots came. They helped me find my grandmother. There was a nice older brother named Fu who even bought me some candy. She stood on her tiptoes and placed a piece of malt candy into my mouth. Her hand moved numbly, wiping my face. Sister, why are you crying? I shook my head and held her tightly. I finally found the courage to open the last letter Fu Beigui left behind. Jiang Yan, all our aviation school comrades have fallen. Scattered across the land, back during that emergency landing in the western suburbs, I was already prepared to sacrifice my life. I never imagined, after such a close brush with death, that I would get to see you again. The years that followed were a gift I never deserved. Please accept this compensation. If the ashes of my death can pave a path for you, then I shall die with no regrets. The river water lapped against the hem of my skirt. It was as if I could hear him again. Under the Kunming sun of that year, Fu Beigui looking down at me, then allow me to be the wind beneath your wings, Engineer Jiang. After returning to Kunming, my teacher wrote me a letter of recommendation, sending me abroad for further studies. I pursued a double major in mechanical engineering and aeronautics. After returning to China, I was assigned to work in the remote Northwest, participating in several classified projects. It was 20 years before I returned to Kunming. My teacher told me that Chen Jingrang had come looking for me many times. He was asking for my address and contact information. He even secretly cut my photo from the school bulletin board and took it away. What a disgrace. His divorce from Tong Jingwan was the talk of the town back in the day. The two of them spent their time dancing in ballrooms and going to the movies. They completely squandered the Chen family's ancestral estate in Kunming. Even the Chen mansion was put up as collateral. Tong Jingwan ran off with a smuggling boss operating along the Yunnan-Myanmar border. A few years later, she came slinking back, a shadow of her former self. Now, Chen Jingrang's health has also failed, and he lives year-round in the township clinic, recuperating. With nowhere else to go, Tong Jingwan ended up back by his side. All day long, he's scheming about how to swindle Chen Jingrang out of his meager pension. Goodness, the noise. It's coming from the next room over. Every day there's a racket of things being smashed and thrown about. The teacher was complaining with her words, but her eyes were practically sparkling with gossip. She wheeled me out to fetch some water, using it as an excuse to go see what all the fuss was about. I stood in the corridor, holding a thermos flask, and let out a helpless, bitter smile. In truth, I had seen this scene before, only back then. I was the one lying in the hospital bed, the desperate and suffering Chen Jiangshi. One wrong step leads to another, yet fate has granted me a second chance, and I can finally be my true self. The one I love also wishes for me to be nothing but myself. From now on, the road ahead is clear and the world feels vast. Extra. In the hospital room, Chen Jingrang was fuming with a headache, all thanks to Tong Jingwan. He caught sight of a familiar figure. It was the very figure that had haunted his dreams all these years. He shoved Tong Jingwan aside. I stumbled and bumped into things more than once on the way over. Wait, the person in front finally turned around, revealing the face from his memory. In this lifetime, Chen Jingrang should have never seen Jiang Yan's aged appearance, but lately, he's been dreaming constantly. In his dreams, Jiang Yan never went to study at the United University and truly became his wife. They supported each other through thick and thin, and even had a son. Yet, in the dream, he was never satisfied, always longing for Tong Jingwan, with whom he felt a deeper connection. He broke Jiang Yan's heart. He even said harsh words to her when she was gravely ill. He wanted to stop it all, but he was powerless. After waking up, Chen Jingrang consoled himself, telling himself it was nothing but an empty dream. If Jiang Yan had truly married me back then, I would have treated her well. Nothing like what happened in the dream. Meeting again today, seeing Jiang Yan's aged face, It was exactly as it was in the dream. It was the same person from the dream, whom he had distantly referred to as Mrs. Chen, née Jiang. Her eyes always seemed lifeless, like stagnant water, yet the Ms. Jiang Yan before me was radiant and full of vitality, the same face. Yet living a life that was worlds apart. My apologies, I mistook you for someone else. Chen Jingrang was utterly ashamed and could no longer muster the courage to face Jiang Yan. He fled the scene as if escaping. Story 2. On the very day Jiang Wenyu and I got married, Wen Ting was assaulted by several men in an alley. Afterwards, holding her, Jiang Wenyu blamed me. Sun Yan, this is your fault, you owe her. From that moment on, the scales in his heart tipped completely in someone else's favor. Later, I was killed in a home invasion. With my last breath, I made one final phone call to Jiang Wenyu. He hung up on me impatiently. Can't you be more understanding? Shouting is scared of thunder. I can't leave her right now. Given a second chance at life, I decided to give him exactly what he wanted. I left, just as he wished. The picture of understanding. 1. The moment I was reborn. Wen Ting was splashing a bowl of scalding hot pot broth right into my face. You bitch. Is it fun seducing a married man? As if she were Jiang Wenyu's legitimate wife. It was dinner time, and the hot pot restaurant was packed. Everyone turned to look. Oh, so she's the other woman. But that guy just called her wife a moment ago. I guess if you're handsome enough, you can have as many wives as you want. Ugh, homewreckers deserve to die. A smug, triumphant smirk curled at the corner of Wen Ting's lips as she shot me a look of pure provocation, just like in my past life. She had a penchant for making a scene anywhere and everywhere, just to humiliate me. If I hadn't learned the truth before I died, I might have just swallowed my anger this time, too. After all, the responsibility for what happened to her, the assault that broke her mind, rests squarely on Jiang Wenyu and me. Nian Nian, are you okay? Jiang Wenyu's gentle voice reached my ears, feeling as if from a lifetime ago. He was carefully wiping the chili oil from my face, yet at this moment, I couldn't help but recall his countless reproaches from our past life. It's because of us that Ting Ting ended up like this. Can't you just endure it a little longer? This time, I pushed him away almost instinctively. Then, I flung the bowl of equally scalding hot and sour soup right back into Wen Ting's face. Ah, Wen Ting shrieked, clutching her face and writhing dramatically on the floor. The look she shot me was pure venom. Does it hurt? Watching her in pain, I actually laughed. I leaned in slowly, my voice dripping with hatred as it hissed through my clenched teeth. Wen Ting, you know what? I've wanted to do this for a long, long time. Jiang Wenyu quickly helped Wen Ting up, his face cold and stern as he rebuked me. Sun Yan, she's just a patient. What are you picking a fight with her for? A patient? I repeated the word with a mocking, sardonic tone, then looked quietly at Jiang Wenyu. I raised my hand and slapped him right across the face. I've wanted to do that to you for a long time, too. The shop erupted in an uproar, with some people even pulling out their phones to take pictures. I took the marriage certificate out of my bag and deliberately raised my voice so everyone could hear. Jiang Wenyu, I'm here today to ask for a divorce. I'll be waiting for you at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Jiang Wenyu stared at me, stunned. I didn't want to say another word to him. Squaring my shoulders, I walked out of the hot pot restaurant, my mind reeling. Jiang Wenyu, Wen Ting, and I, we were all orphans who grew up in the same welfare home. You could say we relied on each other for survival. That was until Jiang Wenyu was adopted by the Jiang family, and we lost touch. Later, Jiang Wenyu and I met again in university and ended up together. Back then, when Wen Ting, who was studying abroad, heard the news, she teased. You absolutely have to ask me to be your bridesmaid when you two get married. So it never crossed my mind that she liked Jiang Wenyu too. It wasn't until the wedding day that I accidentally lost my backup ring. Wen Ting went back to get the ring for me, but she was dragged into an alley by a few drunk vagrants. As she lay dying and was rushed to the hospital, she kept calling out Jiang Wenyu's name. For as long as she cried his name, Jiang Wenyu remained silent. We cancelled our honeymoon and took turns caring for Wen Ting at the hospital, but whenever Wen Ting saw me, she would fly into a rage, smashing things, sobbing, and hiding in Jiang Wenyu's arms. She was as fragile as a rabbit, unable to withstand even the slightest disturbance. Finally, Jiang Wenyu said, rubbing his temples, Sun Yan, we're the ones who wronged her. She only trusts me now. Could you, please keep your distance from her from now on? From that moment on, his heart and his loyalty were completely given to someone else. Whenever Ting Ting spoke up, he would choose her over me without a second thought. Every day after work, he would always drive to Ting Ting's place first, not coming home until midnight. sometimes not even coming home at all. What could I possibly say? I feel guilty too. I can't say anything, nor do I have the right to. 3. After the incident at the hot pot restaurant in their past life, Jiang Wenyu didn't go to see Wenting for a long time. This state of affairs lasted right up until my birthday. Jiang Wenyu had promised me he wouldn't go anywhere today, that he'd stay and celebrate with me properly. And then, when Ting called, I had no idea what was happening. I just watched as the anxiety in Jiang Wenyu's eyes grew more intense. Before he grabbed his jacket and rushed out the door, I instinctively grabbed his wrist. "It's my birthday today, you promised." Jiang Wenyu seemed utterly frantic, looking at me with deep disappointment. "Sun Yan, if you had gone through everything Wen Ting experienced, you wouldn't say something so flippant." Little did I know, his words would prove prophetic. Not long after Jiang Wenyu left, several men broke down the door to the house. I immediately hid in the bedroom and called the police. Right after I hung up, those men used a key to open the bedroom door. But how did they get a key to my bedroom? Before I could even process what was happening, they forced me to the ground and began tearing at my clothes with reckless abandon. In the chaos, I seized my chance and dialed Jiang Wenyu's number. I knew he was at Wen Ting's place. Her apartment was close by. If only he could get here soon. But all I heard was his cold, impatient voice. "Can't you be reasonable for once? Xiao Ting is scared of the thunder. I can't leave her side right now." "So, you're afraid of thunder?" I only had time for a bitter smile before the thug roughly snatched my phone and ended the call. "Bitch," I heard an angry curse. In my final moments, I told myself, if I could do it all over again, I would stay far away from them. 4. After my soul left my body, I somehow drifted all the way to Wen Ting's home. I saw Wen Ting timidly grab Jiang Wenyu's arm, clinging to him like a lifeline, and ask, "Are you leaving?" Jiang Wenyu put down his phone, gently touched her forehead, and whispered, "I'll wait until you fall asleep." A flicker of panic flashed in Wen Ting's eyes. She suddenly grabbed his shirt and kissed him on the lips. Jiang Wenyu pushed her away directly. "Xiao Ting, I'm married." If you listened closely, you could detect a faint note of displeasure. A sheen of tears welled in Wen Ting's eyes, along with a deep sense of resentment. If she hadn't lost the ring back then, how could I have gone through something like that? "Jiang Wenyu, you promised to atone for her sins to me. You said you'd do anything, short of the final step. Weren't those your own words?" Jiang Wenyu's expression froze. In the end, as if conceding defeat, he closed his eyes and let Wen Ting kiss him again. He even reached out a hand, placing it with practiced ease on Wen Ting's waist to steady her. It felt like this scene had played out 1,000, no, 10,000 times before. I watched as he grew more impassioned, his eyes darkening with desire, even losing control as he cupped the back of Wen Ting's head to deepen the kiss. A wave of intense nausea churned in my stomach, and I began to retch uncontrollably, my body heaving with dry heaves. The thunder had stopped, but Wen Ting was still too afraid to sleep alone, so Jiang Wenyu stayed behind to keep her company. He called me over and over, but I never picked up, and his expression grew darker. "Is Sun Yan angry?" Wen Ting asked. Jiang Wenyu's face was cold, but he said nothing. In the middle of the night, after he had fallen into a deep sleep, I saw Wen Ting carefully get up and go to the balcony to make a call. "Is it done?" "What? Someone's dead." Wen Ting's face turned deathly pale. "I told you to just sleep with her, record a video for blackmail, and that's it, you useless idiots." "Fine, I can't believe I actually trusted you. I told you to just pretend to assault me, but it's over. Everything is ruined now." So, those thugs were hired by Wen Ting. Even the alleged assault was a scene she orchestrated herself. After my death, perhaps out of guilt, Wen Ting bought a plane ticket to lay low out of town. She was just arrested on the spot by the police at the airport. The person who reported her was a tall man. He looked strangely familiar to me, but I was certain it wasn't Jiang Wenyu. I tried hard to make out the man's features, but then I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. 5. Not long after I left the hot pot restaurant, Jiang Wenyu's call came through. "Sun Yan, I don't agree to the divorce. Where are you right now?" I was holding my phone, about to speak, when a car slowly pulled up beside me. The car window rolled down, revealing a stern face. It gradually overlapped with the face of the man from my past life who had called the police. Jiang Zhongning. Jiang Zhongning motioned to me, "Get in the car." Jiang Wenyu on the other end of the line must have heard it. His voice turned cold. "Nian Nian, how could you be with Jiang Chong?" I hung up the phone right then and there. Jiang Wenyu sent a few more messages, essentially saying he absolutely would not go to the Civil Affairs Bureau today and that he needed to have a proper talk with me. He also warned me not to get too close to Jiang Zhongning. I was so angry I could only laugh. Jiang Zhouning is the late-born son of the Jiang family patriarch. He has a cold demeanor and keeps a distant relationship with the rest of the Jiang family. Jiang Wenyu is deeply intimidated by his younger uncle. For years, Jiang Zhouning had been pursuing a career in the entertainment industry, showing no interest whatsoever in the family business. This year, however, he abruptly left the industry, hinting at a potential rivalry with Jiang Wenyu over the family inheritance. It seems to have started right around the time Jiang Wenyu and I first got married. During that period when he would constantly abandon me to go find Wenting, before I could even ask the man in front of me what he was doing here, I heard him say, "Let me take you to the hospital." Jiang Choning's gaze settled on my face. "Doesn't it hurt?" I froze for a moment, instinctively reaching up to touch my face. When I awoke in this new life, I was consumed by overwhelming hatred, to the point of ignoring even the pain from the hot soup scalding me. Now, with Jiang Choning's question, the pain seemed to arrive belatedly, a searing, burning sensation across my face and neck. "I appreciate your help," I said, pulling the car door open and getting in. "In this second chance at life, my own health is what matters most." He meant well, and I don't need to be so overly sensitive about it. At the hospital, Jiang Choning had the doctor give me a full checkup. Fortunately, the hot pot broth wasn't scalding hot, so I was mostly fine after the medicine was applied. I squinted over in that direction. I saw Jiang Choning standing by the window, talking on the phone. "If you're busy, you can head back to the office. Thank you for driving me to the hospital today." From what I recall, he rarely went back to the Jiang family's old house, so our paths almost never crossed. Honestly, I was quite surprised by this sudden act of kindness from him. "It's fine," he said and hung up the phone. He asked out of the blue, "Are you going to divorce Jiang Wenyu?" I was taken aback. So he had seen what happened at the hot pot restaurant. I nodded. "I'll contact a lawyer tomorrow." He just looked at me quietly and said nothing more. I suddenly felt a bit self-conscious under his gaze. "I'm a little thirsty." Only after I said it did I realize I was actually ordering this decisive, stern-faced man to fetch me water. He glanced at me and actually went. I stood at the hospital entrance, overwhelmed with emotion. I happened to see Jiang Wenyu rushing over, carrying Wenting in his arms. "Doctor." The moment our eyes met, Jiang Wenyu froze. I turned away without a flicker of emotion. I waited in the hospital room for a while, but Jiang Choning still hadn't returned. Just as I was about to text him, I heard a noise at the door. "Nian Nian." It was Jiang Wenyu. "This afternoon at the hot pot restaurant, you splashed hot soup in Wenting's face." She thought she was going to be disfigured. The shock triggered her condition again, and she ran into the kitchen, grabbed a cleaver, and slit her wrist. "She's hemorrhaging badly, but the hospital blood bank is running low. You share her blood type. Could you help her?" I looked at Jiang Wenyu, his face etched with pure desperation, and said flatly, "Whether she lives or dies is none of my concern. Can't you see? I'm hurt too." Still giving me a hard time, Jiang Wenyu strode over, seized my wrist, and said in a tone that brooked no refusal, "Come with me for the blood transfusion." 6. I had a wound on my wrist as well, freshly bandaged. His sudden, forceful tug sent a searing pain through it, making me gasp, yet he remained completely oblivious. "Jiang Wenyu, you have no right to force me to do something I don't want to do." Jiang Wenyu's expression darkened. "Sun Yan, do you really need me to spell it out for you? If you hadn't lost the ring back then, Xiao Ting would never have met with misfortune. I wouldn't have had to take care of her. If you hadn't lost your mind this afternoon, Xiao Ting would never have slit her wrists. People must be held accountable for their own mistakes." Jiang Wenyu stared at me coldly. "So?" In his eyes, I was always the one who started it all. Struggling to suppress the irritation churning inside me, I retorted with a sneer, "Jiang Wenyu, you don't need to dress up your fickleness as something so refined. Or have you forgotten that when Ting threw the first drink, she's the one who lost it, not me? When Ting is afraid of being disfigured, but it's just fine if it happens to me. Besides, I have a heart condition. A blood transfusion could very well endanger my life. But then again, you're a busy, important person. It's easy for you to forget things like that, isn't it? Your heart has completely sided with her. What's the point in lying to yourself?" Jiang Wenyu stood frozen in place, his face pale. He wanted to argue back, but found he couldn't. "Jiang Wenyu, what if I told you that when Ting's assault was nothing but a show she orchestrated herself? Would you believe me? Think about it carefully. Why was she so adamant about not going to the police at the time?" "Enough." Jiang Wenyu cut me off harshly. "Sun Yan, you don't have to make up such an absurd excuse just to shirk responsibility. Believe it or not, I don't care." I wrenched my arm free from him, immediately pulled out my phone. and called the police to report that someone was coercing me into a blood transfusion. I ignored Jiang Wenyu's thunderous expression. I calmly gave the police the hospital's address. Then looked up at the man I had loved for so many years. Jiang Wenyu, I'm serious about the divorce. If you don't agree, I'll file a lawsuit. 7. A nurse ran over to tell Jiang Wenyu that a backup blood bag had been found. Before he left, he said, Nian Nian, I was wrong about what happened today, but I really only see Wenting as a little sister. The one I love has always been you, and only you. The unspoken meaning was that he would never agree to a divorce, no matter what. Jiang Choning came in just as Jiang Wenyu had left. There was no hot water there, so I went downstairs and bought some wontons and congee from the hospital cafeteria. He was explaining to me why he took so long. Naturally, I didn't mind, but he must have noticed my discomfort and suggested heading back to the office. Watching him finally leave, I immediately felt a wave of relief. Then, I received a WeChat message. Jiang Choning sent me a contact, a lawyer who specializes in divorce cases. Has a pretty good win rate, never lost a case. Me, still had to thank him politely. Thanks, uncle. There was a long silence on the other end before a message came through. Since you've decided to divorce, there's no need to keep calling him uncle anymore. During the period I was preparing to file for divorce, I stayed in the hospital to recover from my injuries. Jiang Wenyu came to see me many times. He spoke in a soft, pleading tone, sincerely promising to send Wenting abroad for treatment and to cut off all contact with her. I just called security to have him thrown out, my face completely expressionless. That night, Wenting suddenly sent me a message. You think you've won? Let me tell you, he got drunk last night, and we slept together. Maybe I'm already carrying his child, then instantly deleted it. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before replying. Next time, use protection. If you end up with a kid who's as cerebrally challenged as you are, that'll be on you. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, Jiang Wenyu came to see me again. He said he was willing to discuss the divorce, but on one condition. I had to attend his mother's birthday party. Mom has always been fond of you, and she hasn't been well lately. She wants to see you. We'll talk after the party is over. I agreed. Aunt Zhang's party was a lively affair. With all the extended family members in attendance, Sun Yan is getting more beautiful by the day. If only my son could find such a virtuous wife. Amidst all the relatives' flattering remarks, I realized Jiang Wenyu hadn't told his family about our plans to divorce. Oh my, is that Chong Yen? He never comes to these kinds of parties. What's he doing here today? Right, he and Wenyu have never gotten along. He's probably here just to stir up trouble for him. How's he gonna stir up trouble? By stealing his wife. Ha ha ha. I had just taken a sip of my drink when I saw Jiang Choning, surrounded by a crowd of admirers, tall and long-limbed. He stood out in the crowd, his gaze swept over me, utterly devoid of emotion. I gave him a polite nod, yet he simply stared back, his expression unreadable, before coolly looking away. What a weirdo, what's he so angry about? 8. Nian Nian, a voice sounded in my ear. Jiang Wenyu was impeccably dressed, a gentle smile gracing his handsome face. He extended a hand toward me. Mom is waiting for you in the hall. Let's go. No sooner had he spoken than a figure suddenly appeared, deftly linking arms with his. Wenyu, I've been looking for you everywhere. It was Wenting. I was a bit surprised that Jiang Wenyu actually brought her. Does that mean the Jiang family has acknowledged her status too? Jiang Wenyu's smile faded. He quickly pulled his hand away from Wenting's grasp and explained to me with a hint of unease. Nian Nian. Don't get the wrong idea. I just smiled and said, Jiang Wenyu, we're about to get a divorce. Who you bring to the family dinner is your own business. Wenting's displeasure was written all over her face. I quickly changed tack. Just brought an idiot along. But you still managed to surprise me. Wenting's face turned ashen. She stared daggers at me, her gaze filled with malice. Her gaze swept over the wine glass in my hand, and after a moment, she smiled in a strangely unsettling way. Have fun today, Sister Sunian. My gut told me something was off about her. So, after exchanging pleasantries with Auntie Jiang, I decided to find an excuse to leave as soon as possible. Jiang Wenyu probably isn't going to discuss the divorce with me today. He just tricked me into coming here for his mother's birthday. When I went to the restroom, a sudden wave of heat washed over me, and I finally understood what Wenting had done. My legs gave way, and I stumbled, bracing myself against the wall. In my dazed state, a hand clamped over my mouth, and then I lost consciousness. I woke up in an unfamiliar room, my mouth taped shut and my hands and feet bound. I could faintly hear voices. I drugged her. When the time comes, you guys take her. Make sure you record it, remember. I'll bring everyone over to catch them in the act later. leave plenty of marks on her. I struggled to open my eyes. Wenting was at the door, talking to several men, their faces. They were unmistakably the same men who broke in and killed me in my past life. This was supposed to happen years from now. Why is it happening so much earlier? This is the Jiang residence. Has Wenting lost her mind? 9. Wenting had left. But the men started arguing about something, then. I heard faint footsteps outside the door. Seizing the opportunity, I grabbed an ashtray with both hands and hurled it at the main door with all my strength. Bang! The dull, heavy thud against the door made the footsteps outside hesitate and stop. What a goddamn bitch. This act clearly enraged the men. Cursing as if from a past life, they stormed forward, but before they could do anything, the door was smashed open. In my dazed state, I seemed to see Jiang Chongning's furious face. Jiang Chongning, when I opened my eyes again, the restraints were gone, and only Jiang Chongning remained in the room. I struggled to my feet, but my legs gave way, and I stumbled forward. Instead of the expected pain, I fell into a warm embrace. I grabbed his collar to steady myself. Help me. I saw his Adam's apple bob clearly. Sun Yen. I tried desperately to calm myself down and finish my sentence. Take me to the bathroom. Jiang Chongning stared at me for a long moment, lost in thought. Before quickly pushing me into the bathroom, the icy water poured over my head, barely suppressing the feverish heat within my body. Are you done? Jiang Chongning asked from outside the door. I opened the bathroom door, indicating I was feeling a bit better, but I was still a little embarrassed. The atmosphere was tinged with a subtle awkwardness. Jiang Chongning asked, as if casually, coming to the banquet today. Does that mean you're planning to forgive Jiang Wenyu? I denied it outright. How could I? There's no chance for us anymore. I then told him what had happened. Maybe it was my imagination, but I thought I caught a glimpse of a faint, almost imperceptible hint of pleasure in his expression. Suddenly, voices and a flurry of footsteps sounded from outside the door. I just saw Sun Yan go into this room with a man. I'm pretty sure I saw it right. The voices were getting closer. In a panic, without a second thought, I shoved Jiang Chongning into the bathroom. The door burst open with a crash. The first one to rush in was Jiang Wenyu. Following behind Wenting were nearly all the guests. My face was flushed, and my clothes were still damp with water. There were also fresh marks on my body from the struggle with those men. It was impossible not to let the imagination run wild. Everyone wore expressions of stunned disbelief, whispering among themselves, "Oh my God, what is going on here? Who would believe nothing happened?" So much for the Jiang family's so-called good wife. Turns out she's a slut. Someone, eager to stir the pot even more, whistled at Jiang Wenyu. Now that's one hell of a cuckold. Jiang Wenyu seemed absolutely furious. His gaze locked onto the red marks on my neck and wrist, without rhyme or reason. The next second, a heavy slap landed on my face. The force of it sent me sprawling to the floor. Jiang Wenyu's voice, icy and venomous with jealousy, seemed to hiss through clenched teeth. Tell me. Who is that other man? 10. In an instant, I shot to my feet and slapped him back, hard, fueled by the rage of 2 lifetimes. I put all my strength into it, landing 3 solid slaps on Jiang Wenyu's face. Sharp nails raked across his skin, leaving behind several vivid red welts. He touched his face, his gaze fixed on me, a mixture of pain and fury, as if his mouth could only form the same few words. Who, in the world, is it? At the same moment, from the direction of the bathroom, the door was flung violently open. In front of everyone, Jiang Chongning emerged from the bathroom, a cold sneer on his face. Jiang Wenyu, resorting to violence against a woman, how impressive. His voice was laced with an indescribable fury. I hadn't expected Jiang Chongning to appear now and froze on the spot. The atmosphere turned deathly quiet for a moment, before being broken by a wave of sharp intakes of breath and a swell of shocked murmurs. It's you. Jiang Wenyu's eyes were bloodshot. His face twisted with a murderous rage. Jiang Zhongning, you're seducing my wife. He swung his fist, aiming a vicious blow at Jiang Zhongning's face, but Zhongning sidestepped, leaving him swinging at empty air. He tumbled to the ground in a clumsy, undignified heap. Jiang Chongning looked down at him from his superior position. After all these years, you haven't improved one bit. Jiang Wenyu's eyes grew even redder as he roared, I'm going to kill you. He sprang to his feet and lunged forward again. Both men were tall, but Jiang Chongning was slightly taller and more solidly built than Jiang Wenyu, making the outcome a foregone conclusion. Jiang Chongning dodged with ease, then drove a heavy fist into Jiang Wenyu's face. This punch is to teach you to respect women. Before Jiang Wenyu could react, Jiang Zhongning grabbed him by the collar and landed several more heavy blows, each punch connecting with brutal force. This punch is to teach you to be faithful in marriage. This punch is for slandering your elders without a shred of evidence." The scene fell deathly silent. No one dared to step in to break up the fight, leaving Jiang Wenyu to endure the one-sided assault. After what felt like an eternity, Jiang Zhongning finally stopped. He flexed his wrist, then looked up and met my gaze. His eyes seemed to ask, "Feel better now?" I stared back at him, stunned. I can't quite describe the turmoil in my heart. "Wenyu, are you alright?" Only then did Wenting rush to Jiang Wenyu's side, his face battered and bruised, blood still trickling from the corner of his mouth. But Jiang Wenyu didn't look at her. He just stared fixedly at Jiang Zhongning, a storm of emotions churning in his eyes, which finally welled up with tears. "If you wanted the company, I could have given it to you. Why did you have to take Sun Yan from me?" Watching him put on that show of deep affection, I felt nothing. If anything, it made me a little sick. Jiang Zhongning stared at him coldly. "Today is your mother's, my sister-in-law's, birthday party. You think I'd fool around with your wife right now? Has that woman beside you completely eaten your brain?" At these words, not only was Jiang Wenyu stunned, but the expression of Wenting beside him also turned extremely grim. Jiang Zhongning let out a cold snort, his gaze sweeping over everyone present one by one. "I was passing by this room earlier and happened upon several men dressed as waiters attempting to assault Miss Su. When they saw they'd been discovered, they panicked and fled before they could do anything. Anyone with eyes can see the signs of a struggle in this room. Notice the duct tape and ropes on the floor. And see the red rope marks on Miss Su's wrists and ankles. The blind crowd, if you're truly blind, you must at least have ears." Jiang Zhongning looked at me, his voice firm and resonant. "Miss Su, don't you have the evidence?" I was taken aback for a moment, but quickly grasped the meaning behind his words. I pulled a voice recorder from my pocket. It wasn't hard to figure out. Before going to the bathroom earlier, I took out the recorder to keep it from getting wet. Jiang Zhongning must have seen it. "That's right, just in case. I've had the recorder on me from the moment I agreed to attend this banquet. When Wenting conspired with those men to frame me, I hit record, and now it's finally come in handy." The moment she saw the recorder, Wenting's face went deathly pale. She lunged to snatch it, but Jiang Wenyu seized her arm in a vice grip. "What are you so afraid of?" I watched her terrified expression with satisfaction, then pressed play. The next second, the cold, menacing voice of Wenting came clearly from the recorder. "I drugged her. When the time comes, you take her. Make sure to record the video. Remember, I'll bring everyone over to catch them in the act later. Make the marks on her body more obvious. Make her look more like a slut." A deathly silence fell over the entire room. Wenting collapsed to the floor, weakly reaching out to grasp Jiang Wenyu's hand. "Wenyu, you bitch." Jiang Wenyu's palm came down hard on her face, every finger trembling. "Yes, what happened back then was our fault, but do you hate Nian Nian so much that you'd hire someone to violate her? I've done everything I can to make it up to you. What more do you want?" He practically roared the words. "Because I want you to love me the way you loved Sun Yan." Wenting's face was deathly pale, her expression bordering on hysterical. "Do you think I don't know that every time you kiss me, you're thinking of her? I can't accept this." "Jiang Wenyu, how is it that after growing up together, it's her you fell for? What does she have that I don't?" The room instantly erupted. "Did I hear that right? Isn't that just cheating?" I suddenly felt a strange sense of gratitude for Wenting's less than brilliant mind, and I began to speak. "The reason I came to this banquet today is because Jiang Wenyu previously agreed to discuss a divorce with me. The reason our marriage has come to this point is simple. He had an affair with Wenting, but I never imagined that Wenting, in her rush to finalize the divorce between Jiang Wenyu and me, would go so far as to drug and frame me. If Jiang Zhongning hadn't stepped in to help, she really might have ruined me." I lowered my eyelids at just the right moment, offering a bitter smile. A tide of contemptuous, mocking, and scornful gazes surged toward Wenting. "A homewrecker is a homewrecker. Through and through." How utterly malicious. To be honest, Zhongning is only 3 years older than Wenyu, but he's steady and reliable in his work. Plus, he's the old master's own son. He just seems more suited to inherit the Jiang family business. Absolutely. Speaking of which, has anyone called the police? I can't stand the sight of that woman staying here a moment longer. What about those men? We can't let them get away. I was just about to speak when Jiang Choning's low voice sounded from behind me. "I already called the police. They've been caught." I looked up at him. Jiang Choning gave me a reassuring look. "They disabled the hallway cameras first, thinking they were home free once they scaled the wall by the rockery. What they didn't know was that after a recent burglary at the Jiang residence, we installed cameras outside the wall as well. The security camera outside the wall caught their license plate. I just got word that the police have already arrested them. Upon hearing this news, Wen Ting became even more agitated than before and fainted on the spot. 11. By the time she came to, the police had also arrived. According to the confessions of those men, they identified Wen Ting as the mastermind behind this premeditated rape case. The police also managed to extract another piece of information. The assault on Wen Ting all those years ago was also a setup orchestrated by herself. As she was being taken away by the police, Wen Ting screamed at the top of her lungs. I was a victim too. I hired them back then, but they went back on their word and truly violated me. That's why I hate Sun Yan. If it weren't for her, I would never have gone through all this. I swear I'll get my revenge. I'll make her taste the same suffering I endured. When you're the only one who can save me now. I love you so much. Everything I've done has been for you. The moment he learned the truth, Jiang Wenyu was thunderstruck, frozen in place. A long time passed before he slowly, stiffly, turned his gaze to me. Nian Nian. I watched calmly as his face turned deathly pale, as pain and helplessness welled up in his eyes. He was crying. It was as if countless words were stuck in his throat, unable to be voiced, finally transforming, along with his bloodshot eyes, into boundless regret. Suddenly, a memory from the orphanage came to mind. On my 8th birthday, I desperately wanted a bottle of Coke. Jiang Wenyu vanished all of a sudden. The dean searched for him for ages but couldn't find a trace, and almost called the police. When he finally came back, he was covered in wounds. He took off his jacket and handed me the ice-cold cola he'd been keeping warm against his chest. Grinning, he wished me a happy birthday, but he immediately hissed in pain, the cut at the corner of his mouth stinging him. I only found out later that he had been wrestling with some kids from outside, and the prize was just a bottle of Coke. That day, I received a second gift. 7-year-old Wen Ting, sniffling through her tears, smashed her little rabbit piggy bank and used the pocket money she'd been saving for ages to buy me a 2-inch strawberry-flavored cake. Because of that cake. The year after Jiang Wenyu was adopted and left, another wealthy family came to the orphanage. When the head of the orphanage asked if I wanted to go with them, I glanced at Wen Ting, who stood beside me timidly yet with a flicker of hope, and gently shook my head. So, Wen Ting left with them, while I stayed at the orphanage until I turned 18. Time changes everything. There was Jiang Wenyu, who once got himself bruised and battered just to give me a bottle of cola. There was Wen Ting, who used all her pocket money to buy me birthday presents. And there was me, who gave up a hard-won chance at adoption. None of us are who we used to be. Finally, I said to Jiang Wenyu, maybe at first, you were just trying to make it up to Wen Ting, but the feelings that grew for her later on were real. Don't bother denying it, and you don't need to. All those moments you casually cast me aside, all those sleepless nights I spent tossing and turning, they're proof enough. You've changed. That's the truth. Forcing this to drag on any longer will only make me sick to look back on what we once had. Jiang Wenyu, let's just set each other free. Jiang Wenyu never relented, so in the end, I had no choice but to file for divorce. Fortunately, the lawyer Chen, whom Jiang Zhouning recommended, was truly competent. I became his 106th client to win a divorce case. I came into a substantial inheritance and used a portion of it to register a company. I spent the next few months recruiting a team and getting everything up and running. 3 months after the divorce, I finally carved out some time from my busy schedule to invite Jiang Chongning and lawyer Chen to dinner. In the evening, I spotted Jiang Chongning's car parked outside the company entrance. Congratulations on your new lease on life, he said with a smile. Since attorney Chen and Jiang Chongning are friends, the three of us would often have dinner together during the lawsuit. Over time, I gained some insight into Jiang Chongning's true character. He appears aloof, but is actually a man of refined taste and cultivation, with his own well-considered perspectives and principles on many matters. He rarely smiles, but on the rare occasions he does, it's utterly captivating. For instance, just now, I zoned out for a moment and suddenly found myself sitting in the passenger seat of Jiang Chongning's car. Looking at his sharply defined profile, my brain kicked back into gear. And I felt a bit awkward. You said lawyer Chen isn't joining us for dinner today. Yeah, he has a blind date. Oh, my inner gossip monger was instantly ignited. A young, talented, and successful guy like him still needs to go on blind dates. Jiang Chongning rested one hand on the steering wheel, tilting his head slightly toward me with a faint, ambiguous smile. You're quite pleased with him, aren't you? I instinctively followed his lead. Lawyer Chen is handsome. Any woman who sees him would be smitten. And what about me? His gaze was deep and swirling, impossible to read the emotion beneath. My heart skipped a beat for no reason, and I actually started to stammer. What? Jiang Chongning, however, averted his gaze and, with one hand, unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his shirt, revealing a subtle, elegant gleam at his collarbone. It's nothing. After dinner, Jiang Chongning and I walked along the riverbank. Starlight scattered across the water in shimmering bands of light and shadow, as a gentle breeze rocked the small boat. Want to go for a boat ride? Jiang Chongning asked suddenly. It had been a while since I'd been on a boat, so I agreed. It wasn't until the moment we both settled into the boat that I noticed the atmosphere had grown somewhat delicate. It's hard to pinpoint exactly what's subtle about it, but everything is. Jiang Chongning sat opposite. His strikingly long legs casually crossed in a posture that was both relaxed and impeccably elegant. Even in this setting, he looked every bit the noble who had just stepped down from a medieval European fresco. It suddenly came to mind that back in the day, before he left the entertainment industry, the media had crowned him the dream husband every woman wants to marry. Hoping to break the awkward silence, I brought it up to Jiang Chongning with a smile and said, I was just scrolling through Weibo out of boredom back then. Since we're family, I went ahead and voted for you too. Later, a bot account even reposted my tweet. Gave me a bit of a scare. A bot account? Jiang Chongning's tone dropped, inexplicably somber. Yeah, one day out of the blue, that account followed me. No profile picture, no posts, no bio. It likes every single Weibo I post. What else could it be but a bot? The only thing is, I was pretty surprised when it reposted that Weibo calling you the ultimate dream husband for girls, because that was the one and only post it ever made. If I weren't sure it was a bot, I'd almost think it had a crush on me. Haha. Jiang Chongning suddenly fell silent. I grew restless myself, a vague sense of foreboding settling over me. That red lantern on the shore is quite lovely. I'm going to take a picture of it. I grabbed my phone and shot to my feet, hoping to change the subject. Losing my balance, I didn't even have time to be surprised before I pitched forward, tumbling into a cool, waiting embrace. I was sitting right on Jiang Chongning's lap, his arm wrapped around my waist from behind, while my hand rested uncontrollably on his chest. I could feel the rise and fall there, as if I could sense his heart pounding fiercely. My breath caught in that moment, and I stared at him with wide eyes. In the dim, intimate light, he gazed at me with his deep-set eyes. His features sharp, arched brows and a straight nose, his warm, moist breath ghosted faintly against the tip of my nose. You. He stared into my eyes and said, word by deliberate word, Sun Yen, that was my alternate account. I've liked you. For many years, I was stunned. 12, even after Jiang Chongning dropped me off at home and drove away, I was still in a bit of a daze. To be honest, I wasn't completely oblivious. Every moment spent with Jiang Chongning replayed in my mind like a fleeting panorama. That day, I coincidentally ran into him after leaving the hot pot restaurant. He took me to the hospital, later rescued me from those men just in time, taught Jiang Wenyu a lesson on my behalf, stood by me through the divorce proceedings, and even exposed Wenting in my past life. The clues were everywhere, but, why? Along with the confusion and daze, my heart seemed to be pounding a little too loudly. I've liked you for many years. Jiang Chongning's confession, tinged with a slight tremble, echoed in my ears once more. Just now, seeing me simply staring at him in a daze, he suddenly smiled and said, it's okay, I can wait. I suddenly felt my face grow warm. Nian Nian, a voice, both familiar and strange, came from behind me. I turned around and saw Jiang Wenyu standing silently under the moonlight. His gaze fixed on me, his complexion was pale, with faint dark circles under his eyes, his cheeks had grown gaunt, and his frame seemed as withered and desolate as a fallen branch in autumn. Did he just bring you back? Are you two together now? Who he is, goes without saying. I looked at him coldly. What's it to you? Jiang Wenyu's face turned as pale as a sheet. He lowered his head, despondent and listless with sorrow. I'd been having the same dream every night. I dreamt about that time at the hot pot restaurant. You didn't throw it back at her, you just took it. After that, when Ting kept pushing her luck, and I kept getting more and more out of line, on your birthday, I left you to go comfort Wen Ting because she was scared of the thunder. And then that night, those men Wen Ting hired, Jiang Wenyu seemed unable to go on. He looked up at me as if mustering all his courage, his voice tangled, tense, and trembling with a hint of self-doubt. Is it true? I didn't answer, my fist clenched at my side, but I just looked at him calmly. It was like the string of a kite snapping with a twang. His eyes reddened in an instant. So, it's true, Nian Nian, every time you're in pain or distress, you clench your fists so tightly your nails dig into your palms. No matter how I've tried to help you break the habit, you still do it. Tears streamed down his face. So, Nian Nian, it's true. It really happened in our past life. That's why you want a divorce in this life, you're just trying to save yourself. He raised his hands to cover his eyes, yet tears still welled up and spilled through his fingers in heavy drops. What did I do back then? I went to find Wenting when you needed me most, and I hung up the phone when you reached out to me for help. How heartbroken and utterly desperate you must have been at that time. Even in this life, I still told you to endure it, forced you to donate blood to Wenting. Didn't believe you, and slapped you without even hearing your side of the story. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. My face was pale as I listened quietly to his confession. Nyan Nyan, whether you believe me or not, it's always been you. I've only ever loved you. I never had feelings for Wenting. It was always guilt and a sense of duty. Now, all that's left is hatred and disgust. Jiang Wenyu wiped his eyes with the back of his hand, taking several deep breaths before he could continue speaking in broken fragments. I know you'll never forgive me in this lifetime, and I won't forgive myself either. I will atone for my sins in my own way. Are you finished? I stared at him with an expressionless face. If you're done, then leave, and don't ever show yourself in front of me again. I never want to see you again for the rest of my life. Jiang Wenyu gave me another silent look, then forced a smile that was uglier than a frown. Fine. Before leaving, he told me one last thing. When I first came to the Jiang family, I was the reason Jiang Zhongning was almost kidnapped. He was missing for 3 days and 3 nights, and wasn't found until the 4th day, so he's always hated me. I'm not sure if he got close to you, if he took you from me, just to get back at me. Soon after, Jiang Wenyu voluntarily gave up his right to inherit the family fortune and vanished from everyone's sight. While in prison, when Ting was found to be pregnant, she was released on bail pending trial and was taken back to the Jiang family residence by Jiang's mother. On the very first night when Ting was brought back to the Jiang residence, Jiang Wenyu returned. In the dead of night, he stabbed a fruit knife into the stomach of the sleeping Wenting, killing both her and the unborn child. He has since been apprehended by the police. When Jiang Choning told me about this, I couldn't help but sigh with a heavy heart for a while. Do you feel sorry for her? I shook my head. Whether in my past life or this one, Wenting has always wanted me dead. Her current fate is nothing but her own doing. Evil begets evil. If I were to pity her, then who would have pitied me from my past life? Jiang Choning paused. What about Jiang Wenyu? I raised an eyebrow and stared at him for a moment, holding his gaze until he looked away slightly. Then I said calmly, I don't have any feelings for him anymore. Jiang Choning's brow relaxed. Oh, during this time, Jiang Choning and I had been in that ambiguous space, more than friends, but not quite lovers. He picks me up from work every day, we have dinner together, and on weekends we go traveling. He even used his connections in the entertainment industry to get me VIP tickets to my favorite singer's concert, the kind that includes an interactive segment. The song for the interactive part was called I Like You. That was the first time I learned Jiang Choning could sing. His voice was deep and magnetic, like a lover's whisper, tugging at my heartstrings over and over. As for Jiang Wenyu's speculations back then, I certainly wouldn't jump to conclusions and doubt Jiang Zhoning's motives for being good to me. If he truly wanted revenge on Jiang Wenyu, why did he stay silently by my side in our past life, and only dare to show his true heart to me in this life when he heard I wanted a divorce? Moreover, I remember clearly, in our past life, when Jiang Zhoning saw Wenting finally brought to justice, the tears on his face were real, and the grief and sorrow in his eyes were genuine. It's just that Jiang Zhoning must still be keeping other secrets from me. He doesn't want to talk about it right now, and I won't force him to. I thought it would take a long time to learn this secret, but the opportunity came much sooner than expected. That day, we went hiking. I was completely exhausted, crouched on the ground, and said I couldn't take another step. Jiang Choning smiled, ruffled my hair, then bent down and said, I'll carry you. I wrapped my arms around his neck. Then I won't hold back. Once I was settled on his back, Jiang Choning picked up the bag and carefully carried me along the mountain path. His back was straight and solid. I caught the faint, pleasant scent on him, which gently enveloped me. For some reason, the scene felt vaguely familiar, as if it existed somewhere in my memory. You know, you carried me like this once before, Jiang Choning said suddenly. Go on, I said, perking up my ears. I must have been about 11 or 12 at the time. My older brother and his wife, after years of being unable to have children, adopted a boy around my age from an orphanage. That was Jiang Wenyu. When he first arrived, he was all nervous energy and restlessness. He kept wanting to go back to the orphanage, saying he had to find someone called Nyan Nyan. My sister-in-law asked me to take him to school, but he ran off halfway there, the day I was kidnapped. Everyone assumed I'd gone missing on my way to see him. I thought about it for a moment, then told him anyway. Jiang Wenyu said you only got close to me to get back at him. Jiang Chongning paused, then let out a dry laugh. He really knows how to flatter himself, doesn't he? Back then, they all saw me as the obedient, well-behaved kid. Maybe the more you're restrained, the more you want to rebel. Once I confirmed he'd gone back to the orphanage, I went to an internet cafe for the first time. Gaming? I asked, surprised. Jiang Chongning gave a quiet MHM. But after realizing gaming wasn't as fun as I'd imagined, I left. I was kidnapped while passing by the alley entrance. They took me to a house up in the mountains. The one who brought me food was a little girl with a small face and slightly wavy hair. A distant memory drifted back to me through time. I ventured a question. Were you really dark-skinned back then? Jiang Chongning let out a snort of laughter, to keep me from being recognized. They smeared several layers of soot all over me. I was surprised, and then it all made sense. Back then, the granny from the mountain often came to the orphanage to see me. When she fell ill during that period, I temporarily moved in to take care of her, but I knew she had a son who was a compulsive gambler. It's very likely he was trying to kidnap Jiang Chongning for ransom, but honestly, my memory of the exact situation at the time is pretty hazy. What happened next? What happened next? Jiang Chongning suddenly smiled. I told you it was my birthday and asked if you could take me down the mountain. I said I'd treat you to cake. You happily agreed and asked if you could have the strawberry one. You even asked if you could get a bottle of cola as a bonus. I was taken aback for a moment, then smiled as well. My leg was injured from their beating, so I couldn't get down the mountain by myself. You helped me halfway down the slope, and then carried me on your back the rest of the way. Honestly, I've never seen a girl fight so hard for cake and cola. You were sweating on your forehead, your legs were buckling, and your whole body was trembling from exhaustion. But you gritted your teeth and kept going, finally carrying me all the way down the mountain. Jiang Chongning paused, his voice suddenly tinged with regret. After coming down the mountain, I intended to keep my promise, but when I went to buy the cake, I saw those people had caught up, so I had to hide first. I saw them. Furious, pressing a cigarette butt against your arm. It must have hurt terribly, yet you didn't make a sound. I quickly asked a server to call the police, but by the time I came out to look for you, you were already gone. I unconsciously looked down at my bare arms. Sure enough, there was a faint scar on the inner side of one. Ever since then, I've been wanting to find you, so you could see me. I gave up my right to inherit the Jiang family fortune and chose to enter the entertainment industry. I fought my way up, step by step, until I finally reached the highest, most visible position. All these years, finding you seemed to have become my life's purpose. I felt my life would only be complete once I did. The next time I saw you, it was at your wedding to Jiang Wenyu. That was the first time I truly felt heartache, and in that moment, I realized my obsession with you had turned into affection, and into love, but all I could do was keep my distance, watching you silently from afar. Later, when Jiang Wenyu was unfaithful to your marriage, I was furious, but powerless. I could only leave the entertainment industry, using the fight over the family assets as a way to warn him not to give me any leverage, hoping he would treat you better. Later on, you were the one who asked him for a divorce, Sun Yen. It might be a bit improper to say this, but I'm really glad. As he said this, Jiang Chongning's voice was low, yet laced with a light-hearted mirth. It was clear his happiness was anything but ordinary. My face flushed slowly, and in my heart, I finally made the decision I had been wavering on. In this new life, I just want to live well for myself. If someone likes me with sincere, burning passion, unwavering to the end, then I will like them too, so why not give it a try? Finally reaching the foot of the mountain, Jiang Chongning said, Sun Yen, I still owe you a strawberry cake and a bottle of cola. I gently rested my head against his back and said in a soft voice, just loud enough for him to hear clearly, then your punishment is to treat me to strawberry cake and cola for the rest of my life. The end.